It's all about AWS, especially for the testers and people who have completed the certification. What lies ahead, and is that the end of the road, or how is it? So, and I will tell you why did we arrive at this question. It was not an imaginative piece which we asked ourselves. We have a reason of forming this question, and I will let you know shortly. So what are we going to do is we are going to give a brief introduction about what is Tech Padasala, and I want to also share, because when the meetup when we had this, I had a question there saying that what brings you here. There have been a good response. I wanted to take it from there and analyze how does it really help you, from what are the takeaways you can have from this session with respect to your specific objectives of joining this meetup, and some of the cool facts about AWS in the market, not only what has happened and what is also getting projected, and why it will be a good bet for your time and effort. What are the certifications available, and there are some flexibilities which are there, which have just come on the way in the last 2 years. Before that, it was entirely different sphere altogether. So I'm going to touch upon it, and how does that differ for a beginner who wants to get into the AWS world, and after putting in so much of effort, what are the benefits you really get, and whether it is substantiated with data, or is it all assurance in the thin air. And then we get on to the testing aspect, saying that okay, if you are pure play tester, how does AWS really helps you, and what you can look forward in AWS from a testing perspective. And for those who are completed certification, is that sufficient? Will that really help you, or is it just a stepping stone? So we have covered a couple of major points over there. And then once the session is all over, okay, from here, how do we really build upon it? Or is it just like a 1 hour session where we came, we spoke something, and the relationship is done for the day? I don't believe. But basically, it just starts there. So how we can collaborate better. So those are the items which we are going to cover as part of the agenda. Tech Padasala, I will keep it brief. So Tech Padasala, Arvind, can you admit people as they come in if you don't mind? Because I do see people joining in. Yep. Okay. So.
Sorry, Shami, I'm not getting that option.
Okay. Okay. So when it comes in, I'll admit that. Okay. So Tech Padasala, first of all, it's not a training center, and neither it is a training unit. It's a bunch of folks who are all in their day jobs with a lot of responsibilities on their shoulder. It is basically we all came together with the passion of technology. We wanted to simplify it, and especially on the emerging technology, and to pass out the message saying that technology is not complex. Technology is not something which you need to be scared of. That is one consistent message which we have been sharing for the last 2+ years, and I believe we have been fairly successful in it. And we do a bit of consulting, and we do a bit of training in terms of the meetups like this. Even we do 1 day sessions, and unfortunately after the COVID it has been all restricted to online. So Tech Padasala is not a training center. You can approach us in case if you have any consulting needs, or if you are into some deep technical discussion or an item. We are there, and we focus specifically on AI/ML as well as on cloud. Those are our sweet spots. We intentionally restrict ourselves to this area. We don't diversify a lot. Okay. And at the end of the session, I will also give you the links on how do we stay connected in terms of various forums, whether it is going to be a GitHub, whether it is going to be LinkedIn or YouTube, so many other things. So I will pass on the links, and this PDF also will be made available to you. So these are the few inputs which I received in the meetup messages. One of the questions which we asked is, why do you want to join this meetup? The responses were career growth, And as a QA engineer, I wanted to know what is in store for me in terms of this particular AWS as a cloud. And few people were into the entrepreneurship, that journey, saying that I want to start deploying my software in AWS. And a few were in the exploratory mode, saying that I want to know what it is. Probably I want to automate there, and I know that AWS is a very widely accepted platform. So what is that which makes it unique? And there are certain specific testing topics, saying that what are the tools available, what are the choices which I have, or should I know coding, or should I jump from testing to a development background? Is that permissible at after a decade of career in IT? So those are a few of the points which you see on the screen. I have just copy pasted it from the messages which we got in. In fact, there are more than this, but wherever I saw there was a redundancy, I tried to merge it together. And we intend to answer all of this, not one by one, but in terms of the concepts behind AWS and how do we see that in terms of the market share. Feel free to stop me anywhere. So when we broadly took all those items which we just saw, saying that your intent behind it, right? In fact, these are only a tip of the iceberg. When people talk to us, more or less they have the same questions. So the way we classify the questions are broadly under two categories. One, where people have understood the importance of cloud, but they are standing at the tip of the ocean to take the plunge. They are not sure. Probably there are some few questions which are running in their mind, saying that should I do this, or is there a better time to do it, or is this the right cloud for me, because there are too many options available in the market. So that is category one, wherein they have understood cloud is inevitable, but taking a plunge is something which is holding them back, and probably there are some few inner dilemma which needs to be resolved. The second category is wherein people have gone into AWS. Probably they have just started the journey. That's the reason I have a infant trying to swim, and they want to build their business around it, or they want to build an expertise around it, or they want to get certified and switch over their career, or stay relevant to the market needs, especially during this dynamic times. So these are the two major classification which we definitely see, not only from the responses which we receive, but also from our interaction with all the with various type of people who contact us for different reasons in Tech Padasala, right? So what I'm trying to do is, the first category we will address it with some facts, and the second category who has already gone into AWS, we will build a roadmap for them. So for both of this category, we do have responses, and it is not going to be a very cookie cutter response. It is going to be different, and we will cover on that. And most importantly, I have to when we were putting together this slide, I wanted to be very I wanted to be respectful of your time, because I know that since the working from home has started, people are spending long hours, and to take a 1 hour of your time on a weekday and to join this type of discussion, it means that somewhere deep in your heart you are seeing a change around you, either which is impacting you directly or which has impacted one of your colleagues. So you have come here to seek some of the answers and probably internally clarify with yourself, saying that okay, is this the right decision which I'm going to make? And having that in mind, we brought in some industry fact to prove that okay, these are the certain support data which will help you to make the right decision. And we took pain in extracting the data from different sources, because we absolutely believe that will help you in making the right choice when you are going through this mental dilemma. Out of this, the first thing which we saw on Facts on Cloud is, as of today, as we speak, still AWS is the market leader. It has the dominant market share, and these are all the numbers which are very authentic. But if you see this graph, You will also see one more thing, though in terms of the existing market share, AWS is doing phenomenally good. Azure is growing aggressively. So if you really see the annual growth percentage, AWS is somewhere around 33% year on year, whereas Azure is picking up 62.3. If you are going to ask me saying that Google Cloud is much ahead of Azure in terms of the growth, but you can also see that their market share is very limited. They have a lot of space to catch up. So what do I mean by that is, with the small market share, the growth which they are projecting is not the same as what Azure is doing, with already some big logos with them, and doing a 5.3 billion per quarter is not as a mean achievement. So Azure has been late into the market, unlike AWS, but through their enterprise solutions, they are able to keep decreasing the gap between them and AWS. And the forecast is probably in a year or so, this gap will be less than a billion, and that is going to be too aggressive. And I have reasons to believe it, which I will cover in a few seconds from now. So, if you are a person who are looking at which cloud I should take, as of today, AWS is a market leader, no doubts about it. But Azure is equally competitive; they are growing equally in numbers. In a year from now, if I have to project this, you will see that both of them are leading in some sector or the other. In fact, government sector, Azure already is a leader compared to AWS. So Azure has a separate cloud infrastructure for the Department of Defense. It has a separate cloud for Germany as a country. The German cloud is pretty different. It has a separate Azure cloud for China. So in fact, you and me cannot just log into an Azure cloud for China and make a entry in it. It is not actually a public cloud. So they have made a lot of progress in areas which are considered to be difficult and probably not something which they can easily penetrate, but they have made success there. In fact, the biggest contract from the US government was recently awarded to Azure, not to AWS. So these two people are actually fighting for the wallet share and the market share, the mind share. Google Cloud is far behind, but they are actually doing good. If you are into data and data analytics, and you are a hardcore data person, you still say Google Cloud is a better bet. Many of the features which I have seen in them are in beta version. Some of them get probably released to production, but some of them it stays there and they keep improving. So I believe they have a lot of ground to catch up. It is going to take some more time for them. All the other clouds, the Alibaba cloud is famous because it is a market leader in China, and that is due to a different set of rules which they operate on. All the other clouds which we talk about, IBM cloud, Oracle cloud, everything comes under that 11.6 billion, which is again a substantial share, but not as a single named entity. So what is the fact which I'm trying to drive home from this slide is, AWS and Azure, if you are if you are vying on one of it, you are good. You are good, and both of them are growing huge. And this is a projection which we got saying that in different sectors, how cloud is operating today, and compared to 2020, 2027, if you just see the projections which have come in, especially from Gartner, it says that the amount of business which we do today in cloud is going to more than double. So fundamentally, it means that the future is there in cloud. And whichever domain you are in, whether it is BFSI, retail, IT, immaterial, you have to get on cloud. And in fact, the interesting point here, which I wanted to notice, when this numbers came in, it was pre-COVID days. So this was supposed to be the growth which was projected for the next few years. But if you really see, once with the onslaught of COVID, though all things are going down, digital transformation has really increased. So though it looks to be a fun fact, as a CEO or a CTO who couldn't drive it at that aggressive pace, COVID has been instrumental. At least it has played a catalyst role or a pivotal role in terms of the digital transformation which is happening. And these are not empty words. After the session, if you go to Google and search the amount of business which Microsoft has got in the last 6 months, in words of Satya Nadella, their CEO, it has 4 times what they would have normally received in that period. So that means that everyone is rushing towards the cloud. In fact, even in Indian market, when I have seen the CXO level folks who had been paranoid about cloud and they were taking it slow, now they don't have a choice. They are moving faster towards it. So what does it mean to the previous graph is this 2027 growth may not happen at 2027, but probably it might be pulled. It might be shift left to 24 or 25. So we are going to see more and more growth on it. And these are authentic numbers which can be independently verified. And this is a slide which talks exclusively about COVID influence, saying that how COVID is changing the business, especially around the cloud market, and how much of the accelerators which they are seeing in, and why everyone is left, right, center. They are investing on cloud because they believe that is how they can sustain the business and reduce their operational, capital expenses. So these are, I'm not going to go in depth of it, but the numbers at a very high level justifies saying that even during this time, if you are going to put your effort and energy on cloud, it is not going to be an ideal investment. It is going to reap benefits immediately in the near future. And all these numbers are, if you ask me, it is all a vindication of the fact that this is the right decision to be made. But when this market is growing, we also need to understand the cloud innovation is also growing in proportion. So what I mean by that is, if you are a person who is just trying to learn AWS, say a few years back, 2010, 2014, just understanding that S3 stands for a bucket, and that is a storage, which will be more than sufficient. But slowly, when services started kicking in, the expectation around the candidates were also increasing. It was no more sufficient that you understand S3 as a bucket. You were required to understand what are the features of it and how do you put data in the right tier to save the cost, and so on and so forth. And as reason does it, it has even got more complicated, because now we are talking about how do we restrict the access, how do we ensure that the privacy is safeguarded. So basically the S3 is the same, but the features have got expanded. So from 24 services which they had in 2008, in 2016 it was around 2000 services. It's an exponential growth, and in fact it implies that no one can keep up with the pace at the same rate at which AWS is growing. So what does it mean to the people who are standing at the tip of the ocean thinking about, should I take the plunge now or not? Uh, you should have taken it yesterday, because in a year from now I'm going to have the same slide saying that now it is 4,000, it is now 6,000. So many services which are coming day by day into a cloud. It makes in a way, when we like the innovation growing, the demand of a person knowing the in and out of the cloud is also going up. The expectations are going up. I can respectfully say, people who has completed certification 18 months back, if they have to come back today and take the same certification, I doubt whether 50% of them will be able to clear it. It's not anything to do with their competency, but the changes outside the cloud environment has increased, or it has gone up in the last 18 months so drastically that we need to keep up pace with that. So there is no right time to get into it. If you are still waiting for it, we have already presented a lot of numbers to say, yes, this is growing, and there is a market to it, not only now, even in the future. And at the same time, the complexities are also growing in proportion. We need to take the plunge into it. And before I go on to the further slides, let me take a pause. Any questions so far? Anyone, any questions? I know that I was just presenting a lot of industry facts. We didn't get into the cloud as such, but that is more to build the conviction, saying that are you focusing your energy at the right area? Will that help you not only in the current market but also in the near future market? So that was the point which we were driving to with all those statistics, heavy slides there. If you have any questions, do let me know. Now coming to the certification, there are around, if I'm not wrong, around 11 certifications which are available in AWS. The first and the foundational thing is the cloud practitioner. In fact, if you ask me, without logging into AWS, you can get this certified. And I'm not making a overstatement there. It is a factual one, because this cloud practitioner is for people who are non-technical in nature, who are into sales, who are into higher echelon of the management, or people who are into program management and who needs to understand what are the offerings of the cloud. You need not even make your hands dirty by doing few things, but doing that really helps you to understand the facts and digest it well. But cloud practitioner mostly talks about strategies. It talks about migration strategies. It talks about building a right architecture. It talks about vulnerability strategy. It talks about the important services around storage, networking, compute, and the advanced compute, which I will call as serverless. Those are the things which it tries to help you to understand, and it helps you to understand the various support levels available from AWS for your organization, and what are the pricing tiers for it. It also tries to explain what are the proprietary tools which AWS has in terms of their databases, in terms of their load balancers, and why you should go for it. It also talks about services which will help you to build your application more secured in a more available way. So basically, it is all about at a 50,000 feet level. And I stand by my word. You need not even log into AWS to get this certified. It is for those non-technical folks. If you want to know a little bit more, then we have the next level of certification, which is your architect or the developer level. And I have a couple of slides to indicate what are the exact difference, though 80% of the syllabus actually overlaps between the architect and the developer. So in fact, if you are a person who wants to get more certification, if you complete associate certification on day one, architect solution architect associate, on day two you can go ahead and take developer certification also, because 80% of the syllabus, or to an extent 85% of the syllabus, are the same. So there is a high probability that you will get passed, and though you need to pay twice, both are not coming under the same umbrella. You need to pay twice, and you need to take two such exams separately. And professional is more about in depth about of those topics which we will cover in associate. In associate, if you get an exposure on the different services and the features of it, professional will talk about the interaction of those services. So in real sense, without passing the associate level, getting onto professional will not help, but that is not a limitation. 2018, mid of 2018, AWS removed all those restrictions. So fundamentally, it means that you need not go through the same hierarchy. If you are very sure, you can go ahead and write a solution architect professional or specialty exam straight away without needing to clear the base level. And that was a flexibility which just came in 18 months back. So, but technically, you need to still know the services to do it, but there is nothing stopping you from targeting the highest level of certification. You are not bound saying that you should have cleared it and the certification should have been active. These are the various certification available in the specialty space. If you are into networking, if you are into machine learning, or you are into cyber security, you have the different certification. And again, as I said, there is no hard and fast rule that you need to complete a base level certification to do it. It was there 1.5 years back. They removed it. So you can go ahead and even book in for your advanced networking and do it if you are very confident about it. So altogether, as I said, there are around 11 certifications which we have in AWS, and the most popular one being the solution architect, and it has been off late in the last 6 to 8 months. I see that as a trend where major MNCs and even people, the interns who are given the offer, they have been recommended to complete the certification and join in. There are market dynamics behind it, because if you want to be a cloud partner with AWS, they demand that so many of your employees should be certified. And the other dynamics behind that is, this is the compensation stuff. This is 2019 salary range, which I took in from a credible data source, which says how much an average engineer makes once they complete a certification. And when they compared it to a person who has not completed it, it means that it gives us 17% jump. I was trying to dig in the Indian data also. I got it in various different formats, all pointing towards the same thing, saying that there is a substantial jump in the salary, but I was not able to get the numbers very accurately, because in our system the numbers are not very visible and the surveys are not being taken in the right way. So that is the reason I couldn't get the Indian salaries, but Europe as well as US, this number stands good. The 17% holds good, wherein a certified and a non-certified person, there is a 17% jump. And having said that, let me also make it clear, the number of people getting certified at associate level and developer level in the last 1 year, if I have to say, has doubled. So that means that slowly this is no longer a blue ocean, it is becoming a red ocean. The competition is intensifying, people are getting certified, which is a good thing. But also we need to know that it is going to put us the pressure on us, saying that we need to get on to the next level of certification to differentiate ourselves from the common masses. More about it little later. So before I jump on to the testing, which is a real discussion for today, any questions so far? Well, if I have to admit someone, I will do it. Any questions? So coming to the testing, in fact, when I was putting the slide, I really wanted to put a simple slide with only testing as the label there. But then I had a reason to put this three, what you call as the three axes together, the testing, development, and release. Because if you have to really think for a moment, when these people are able to double up their number of new services and they have 11 plus certifications that they offer, why they didn't offer a certification called as AWS QA certified? It's not that they forgot it, they could have easily done that. And if they have forgotten it, even if we take even for a moment, if we assume that it is true, the other cloud providers would have grabbed that opportunity. Even Azure doesn't have a QA certification, GCP doesn't have a QA certification. So if all the cloud providers uh, totally isolating the testers, is that the meaning coming out there? If you ask me, it's not the case. That's the reason I had this particular slide with all these three axes coming together: the development, the testing, and the release. Fundamentally, the way it works is, no longer they start to see testing as one independent entity or someone who will be doing their job in isolation, but rather the ecosystem has testers as an integral part of their whole development or construction unit. That is the reason all these cloud providers, they were specific on not coming up with the QA certification per se, but rather they wanted the testers, they wanted the QA folks to understand the environment much better, so that they know the scope of testing is little beyond what is being expected in the normal world. Let me give you some examples to explain my theory. So I don't know how many of you have ever seen a screen like what I have on this, what I have projected. This is the screen which I started my career with. This is a green screen, or you call it as a mainframe screen. So when we were doing mainframe development, the testing work was all isolated to functional testing, integration testing, system testing, UAT, and deployment. So fundamentally, all this was testing about functionalities in different levels. Integration will integrate the upstream and downstream. System testing will also take into account the other interfaces which are available. UAT was a different group doing it for us, but end of the day it was all about functional testing. So suddenly what happened is, over a period of time, you got this client server coming in, you got this web application started coming in, and along with it, few things which we have never heard about came into picture. That is, the one is the UI UX testing. So in green screen, I don't even believe there is something called UI or user experience or a user interface testing. Even if it is there, it would have been very minimal because the options were limited. But today, UI UX testing itself is a broader sphere. Compatibility testing, whether your application is compatible with different browsers, with different devices, with different, when I say devices, it means not only your mobile, it your iPads, your different types of operating system, Android, iOS, Windows, etc., etc., right? So you had a lot of choices coming in, and the scope of testing also increased. It no longer restricted itself to functionality testing. In fact, if you ask me, it has increased to usability testing, it has improved to interface testing. Performance testing was already there in the mainframe world, but it was all restricted to bringing up your jobs. Your green screen should be up and running in the morning 5, and the response time of each screen should be in few seconds. Those are the only two things. But once you got into the web application, suddenly you started seeing the number of concurrent users, how many users are coming and hitting your service, and what is the performance for it. And you started seeing the response time of each of the screens, which was quite different what we had seen earlier. Security testing came into picture. So the fact which I'm trying to drive in is, whenever there is a technology change, the scope of testing has increased exponentially. From what we were doing as a functional testing still retains, still in a web application world you need to do it, but things which were unheard of in the mainframe world came into existence just because the client server came into picture and the web application came into picture. Similarly, when the cloud world has come in, few things which we have never heard in the web application and in the client tiers have started coming in, and it will be there in existence, and we need to test it out. And these are some of the major items which has come into existence just because of cloud. The first symbol which you see there is Kubernetes. Kubernetes, if I have to give you a simple example, it believes that OS can be sliced into containers, and you can have your workload within a small unit, contained unit. Or in simple terms, if I have to say, if you understand what is a virtual machine, in reality there is one big infrastructure, and when you configure a machine in the cloud, you always believe that you have the full control on the machine, but in reality it is not the case. It is a hypervisor which is running on the machine, which makes you to think that you have the full control. There are not a number of machines there. It is basically you configure a machine virtually and you believe you have the control. Similar to it in Kubernetes, it gives you a control on your operating system. So you form a small unit, you have a file there, you have an application running there, and you all believe that your OS is running this as a one single workload, and you can have multiple workloads like that which are scalable. And this concept is fast growing, and in fact many applications are adopting Kubernetes framework or a variant of it um, in all their modern applications. And this is not possible if cloud had been there, was not there. And similarly, the one which you see below is called as a polygot, which again a term unheard of in the pre-cloud era. Earlier we know that we had .NET testers, we had Java testers, we have Perl testers, we have Python testers. But in the cloud world, you can write an application in whichever language which you are comfortable with, or probably the language which gives the best value for that particular functionality, and put them all as microservices or containers and deploy it. And technically that is called as a polygot. So fundamentally now no longer I believe testers can identify themselves as with a programming language, but rather they will be identifying themselves with the technology or with the containers. Similarly, serverless applications. Serverless application, again a concept where you need not worry about spinning a server or having a memory to it, or forming a network connection to it. You need not worry about anything, but rather just about your code. You write a code and just upload it. It will scale on its own. It will function on its own. Though it looks to be easy, ideally it is not, because it comes with the restriction of the amount of CPU you can use and the amount of memory it can consume. So you cannot write reams and reams of code and just upload it. Rather, you need to break it down into sizable chunks which will not exceed a certain memory or a CPU limit. That means that the whole idea of writing a programming from linear fashion has become into an orchestration, and that is what serverless in a nutshell is. And all this can be integrated only with the APIs. So fundamentally now you start thinking your architecture itself as a block of API calls where each will do a role on its own. So fundamentally a serverless and API can go hand in hand and interact with the Kubernetes engine, which could have been written in multiple programming languages. All these concepts today are there, and it is a reality. It is fast growing, it is cost optimized. It is just because of the cloud. And if you are a tester and if you are deep into the QA space, now you cannot avoid all this and continue with your work, similar to what you couldn't have done with the other testing which I just said, which came into the web application world. So these are the few things which we require for a definite skill upgrade. And this is one prominent example which comes in whenever we talk about testing. Kiosk engineering, a new terminology which came in, wherein if you create a kiosk in your infrastructure, how resilient it is to the changes and whether the end user experience is impacted or it is having that much of an ability to bounce back. And there are a lot of tools available around it which talks about it's called as a simian army. You can google it. It talks about kiosk monkey, wherein randomly you can plug off a server to see what is the impact. Kiosk gorilla, which talks about randomly plugging off an availability zone. Kiosk kong, which talks about randomly plugging out a region itself to see whether your end user is impacted. And if you are someone who is now stuck up of not able to understand what is an availability zone and what is a region, that is fundamentally why we need to understand the cloud. That is why they don't have a QA certification per se, but they want you to get into it and understand all the services so that you will be able to appreciate the ecosystem well and then start deploying your tools. Because the moment they isolate it as only for QA, I don't believe such a role will exist, because end of the day it is all tightly integrated with the services which they have. And for your academic interest, availability zone is nothing but a data center A region is nothing but interconnected data centers. So can you shut down a region arbitrarily and still ensure your end users are not impacted? The way you do it is by building in sufficient amount of redundancy for those critical processes. So, and all these things as we speak, they do already exist, and it is all being time tested. And all this, they came through stages of evolution, because Netflix had a downtime. Not only Netflix, even Docker had a downtime. Docker was built on AWS, and they for one of their major keynote event was rescheduled for 2 days just because the AWS region was down. Coursera, a very famous educational platform, was completely blacked out because AWS went down. And the Quora, which is a social media forum, Medium, which is a blogging platform, all this operates on AWS. And in the last 5 years, they had more than 5 years of blackout just because one or the other didn't work. And that is the reason this resilience testing is gaining prominence, because uh, when such things do happen, it is a high possibility that not only the business get disrupted, but also the users, they have a tendency to switch over to a different platform. So if Netflix is going to frequently go down, it is easier for us to switch on to Amazon Prime. So in such case, wherein you can't afford to have a downtime like that, you need to build in redundant systems, and that is where resilient testing comes into picture. And apart from it, when I was trying to look into the AWS marketplace, I was able to see a lot of tools have started coming in from third party. AWS per se is not having such tools. One such tool is a load runner, wherein you build an application. AWS, you can start writing a script and test the performance as if it is simulated by thousands of external users. But again, even if a performance tester has to do it in AWS world, he or she needs to know what is a EC2, what is a S3, what is a file system, and so on and so forth. In fact, a load balancers and etc. And if they don't know that, even if they are a very proficient and competent tester, their skills will not be of good use into a cloud environment. Same thing with this is another tool which I just came across called Dynatrace, which helps you to do a CI/CD and do a regression along with it. It can reject the code if it doesn't meet certain standards, but a tester should be able to go ahead and watch the logs and determine why the code has failed, why the build has failed, or what they need to do in order to allow it to the next deployment. But yeah, unless a QA person knows CloudWatch is a place where they have to go and see the log, they will not be in a position to do this, even if though the tool is very productive one and very user friendly. So those are the reasons when we look into the deep philosophy of AWS, it says whatever you see on the screen right now, if you are able to understand each of the services, at least you know what each stands for, then you are good. You are good, and you will be able to do your work in any cloud environment. If you are not able to say what each services stands for, fundamentally, whether you are a developer, whether you are a tester, it doesn't matter. You will not be productive in a cloud. And that is the reason it didn't come out with a QA certification per se, because this is the bare minimum anyone should know, irrespective of whether you are an architect, whether you are a developer, whether you are a QA person, or whatever may be your role. Even if you are you are not into technology, you should at least know what is this so that you can make a right decision. As I said, even cloud practitioners are expected to know all this, though they may not be using it. And to a great good point here is, to know all this, you don't need a coding experience. You don't need to have a development experience, because all these are configuration, all these are services. It just helps you to know what it stands for. S3 is a storage, EC2 is a compute. To know this, it doesn't mean you need to know a Python or you need to know a Java. That is more of a mindset change which we need to make rather than the real change which is required. And that is a question which at least I get asked often, saying that I don't know coding, can I get onto cloud? You don't require to know coding, because none of the services are code intense, but it is all configuration and you need to know the usage of it, right? So coming back, the difference between the SA and the developer associate is, one question is, if you are given a design and you want to write the best code out of it by leveraging the right services from your cloud ecosystem, you should go for developer associate. If you are a person who are designing a solution, who needs to know which choices you need to make for the getting the high availability, for being highly secured, for getting the right performance, you need to go for solution architect. Though both cover services, the way it covers differs a bit. One goes directly into the coding, deployment and debugging. The other, solution architect, talks more about what are the services available, which one makes sense in which context, and it trains you for that. That is the reason my recommendation to all of you is to start with solution architect, and from there you can start building to whichever certification you require, because this is your bare minimum entry gate point. So irrespective of which function you do as part of the product or a project life cycle, this will be the go-to approach. And the last question which we all had is the certification enough? Actually, no. Certification just gives you a call letter. It doesn't give you an offer letter. It helps you to understand the services. You need to pick up and do few projects. And the way you can do it is, one is you log into AWS IQ. There are real-time projects which come in. You can bid and you can do it. And if you feel that no, you don't want to do something like that because you are still learning, you are little scared, which is right in the sense, we are in the process of creating our own community within Tech Padasala, where we want to tag along with people and do this, not with the intent of making money, but with the intent of gaining experience. So that if you are not comfortable about one particular context, the other certified person will help you to make the right choice, and we will have a broader community where you can discuss about the projects and come together either for a working session, or you can come together in making a decision together. We just started it a couple of weeks back, and we discussed one of the projects, and we intend to build it as a much bigger community going forward. And that is something which I will definitely welcome you all having passed the certification to take it up, because that is one of the prerequisite which you have. Even when you go ahead and log into the site, it will try to map your certification. If you don't have a certification, it will not allow you to register in. And future, you can even do this as a freelancer, not only from gaining experience but also making a part-time money. When I say part-time money, it is a good money. Some of the projects I have seen goes up to $3,000 for a 1 week or 2 weeks of work, which is a good money in terms of the Indian context. The other thing which we have started within Tech Padasala is Tip of the Week, where we start circulating what has happened in the AWS world in the very recent past, or what are the tools which probably you need to know over and above than what you would have already underwent through the course. And this is our way of uniting people and making them to remain in the same ecosystem of AWS, rather than using this as a one-point stop, like, okay, I came in, I went through a course, I completed it, now I'm disjoint with it. It doesn't work that way, because after 1 or 2 years, there's 2,000 services would have become 8,000, and you will feel like a fresher into the AWS campus. We wanted to break that myth. That's the reason we intentionally keep doing this, and we also intend to bring this out all in terms of our YouTube channel. That has been our wish list for a long time. With this video, this one which we are now, will be our first video in that context. So these are the various forums you can reach out to me.